Sometime between late June and early July of 1972, 58-year-old Hilda McAfee and her elderly mother were driving west on Interstate 10, returning home to Deming from Los Cruces, New Mexico. The highway stretched before them through the flat desert landscape, with few other vehicles around during the clear, warm night. Approximately 23 miles east of Deming, their quiet journey was suddenly interrupted. A bright beam of blue light shone down directly in front of them, emanating from the same lane in which they were driving. The light was extraordinarily intense, so bright that it illuminated the floorboards of the car and made visibility nearly impossible. Mrs. McAfee later described it as much brighter than daylight. Acting quickly, Mrs. McAfee prepared to swerve around what appeared to be some kind of object on the ground ahead. As she manoeuvred the vehicle, both women caught a glimpse of something extraordinary. Standing in the road, bathed in the brilliant blue glow, were two figures. The women only had moments to observe them, but what they saw left a profound impression. The figures appeared to be of average height and stocky build. Both were dressed identically in pale blue, bulky quilted coveralls. Mrs. McAfee's mother particularly noted their wide belts, which matched the colour of their coveralls and the gloves they wore. Mrs. McAfee herself observed they had dark boots reaching the mid-calf. Both women agreed that the most striking feature was the figures' headwear. Helmets, similar to those worn by motorcyclists, complete with dark visors that completely concealed their facial features. The entire ensemble had no visible insignias or identifying marks of any kind. What struck the women as particularly unusual was the way the figures moved. They appeared rigid in their movements and seemed either unaware of or unconcerned by their approaching car. One figure had his back to the women and appeared to be working on something connected to an object above them. The second figure was turned sideways, facing his companion, seemingly engaged in conversation. Both figures were standing flat on the road, either beside or directly underneath what the women assumed to be some kind of craft. The blue light that had initially blinded them was shining down from a point somewhere above the figures. Simultaneously, another beam of light that had been focused on the women's car followed them as they drove around the scene. The women also noticed several black rods near the figures, estimated to be about 4 or 5 inches wide, though they couldn't discern further details. The entire object above the figures was described as being somewhat obscure due to the brightness of the lights, but Mrs. McAfee estimated it to be roughly the size of a truck and positioned high off the ground. She later mentioned the possibility that they may have actually passed partially under the object in their attempt to avoid a collision. Despite the size and unusual nature of what they were witnessing, both women noted the complete absence of sound. The only visible lights were the beam from above and what appeared to be a spotlight directed at their car. As soon as they passed the figures and the object, the women looked back, only to find that everything had vanished. The roadway was dark, and there was no trace of the scene that they'd just witnessed. The women later speculated that whatever it was, it had used the light to prevent a collision and had turned it off after they had passed safely. The entire encounter lasted approximately 5 minutes. The setting was typical of the region: flat desert land, sparsely populated, with clear, warm weather conditions. No air traffic was noticed in the vicinity at the time. However, the most unusual aspect of the case emerged in the aftermath. Both women began to suffer from a burning, aching pain in their chests and arms following the encounter. They described the sensation as so intense that even their bones seemed to hurt. Both women attributed these symptoms to exposure to the intense bright light that had pervaded their vehicle during the encounter. What makes this account particularly compelling is that neither women had any previous experience with or knowledge of UFO phenomena. They were completely unprepared for what they witnessed that night on Interstate 10. The incident might have remained private, known only to Mrs. McAfee and her mother, if not for a connection to another famous case. Mrs. McAfee was the landlady to a man named Cheney Rogers, who happened to be the brother of Mike Rogers, one of the 6 witnesses to the well-known Travis Walton incident that occurred in November 1975 near Snowflake, Arizona. The Walton case involved the logging crew who encountered a disc-shaped craft in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest. Walton approached the object and was struck by a blue-green beam, after which he disappeared for 5 days. His crew members witnessed the event and passed polygraph tests about their account. When Walton reappeared, he claimed to have been taken aboard the craft and examined by strange beings. The case became one of the most thoroughly documented abduction cases in UFO history. It was only after the publicity surrounding the Walton case that Mrs. McAfee and her mother felt comfortable coming forward with their own experience. As Mrs. McAfee put it, she finally decided that, quote, no one would laugh at them now. Their story eventually reached Raymond Jordan, a field investigator looking into the Walton case, who passed it along to Investigator Patti Morris. Morris conducted a thorough interview with both women and was impressed by their sincerity and eagerness to share their experiences. She noted that they seemed genuinely affected by what they'd witnessed. The women mulled over numerous possibilities about what they'd seen. Were these men, government agents working on classified technology? Could there have been foreign operatives gathering intelligence on American soil? Or were they, as incredible as it seemed, visitors from somewhere beyond Earth? The women also considered the purpose of the blue light beam. They speculated that perhaps it had appeared to prevent their vehicle from colliding with the figures or the craft. What might have happened if Mrs. McAfee hadn't swerved? Would the light have somehow repelled their vehicle anyway? They noted how quickly the light disappeared once it safely passed, suggesting it may have served as a warning or protective measure. The physical effects experienced by both women in the days following the encounter added another layer of mystery to the event. The persistent burning and aching sensations in the upper bodies, particularly in areas that had been exposed to the light through the car windows, suggested some form of radiation or energy that human bodies were not accustomed to. Interestingly, the 1972 McAfee encounter near Deming, New Mexico, contains elements that would appear in multiple reports throughout 1973 and beyond. The description of the beings, their unusual attire, the brilliant light, and the physical after-effects reported by witnesses all form patterns that researchers would encounter again and again in subsequent years. One remarkable case occurred in the same area nearly 20 years later. On April 12, 1992, near Deming, a driver on US Highway 180 reported encountering what looked like a luminous cloud stretching across the road. After driving into this greyish-white vapour, the witness experienced paralysis and was approached by 2 beings with long, bony fingers. These entities led the witness to a metallic craft described as a shiny metallic object, shaped like a flattened arch with rounded ends. Inside, the witness reported seeing 2 beings with rounded oval faces and large black eyes, before being released. Could there be something about this remote stretch of New Mexico desert that attracts these phenomena? Or were these and the numerous other related reports simply random incidents that happened to share geographical proximity? The 1972 McAfee incident remains significant in UFO research due to the credibility of the witnesses, the consistency of their accounts, and the documented physical symptoms they experienced. For Hilda McAfee and her mother, their summer night drive home became a profound moment that changed their perception of the world. Their experience on Interstate 10 foreshadowed a significant wave of UFO sightings and close encounters that would sweep across the United States the following year in 1973. What is certain is that on that clear summer night in 1972, something extraordinary happened on that lonely stretch of Interstate 10 in New Mexico. Something that left 2 ordinary women with an extraordinary story and lingering physical effects that couldn't be explained. Their account, documented through careful investigation, remains a compelling case in the continuing study of unexplained aerial phenomena and their occupants.